welcome to the Actual Tech Media EcoCast. My name is Jess, and I am excited to be here with you all today. But before we jump into our content, I have some basic information that I want to cover with you. All right, let's kick off our day here today by taking a quick tour of your audience console. And we're going to start with the questions window. So if you haven't already said hi, there is a whole audience of cool humans out there, so reach out and give a wave to the other members of the Actual Tech Media community. Now, keep in mind that if you do have any technical issues today, a browser refresh is going to fix just about anything. But if those tech gremlins are clinging on today, no problem. Just throw a comment in the question section and our crew will be there to help. We also want this to be an informative webinar for you, so throughout today's EcoCast, we hope you'll get engaged and ask all your burning questions. Not only will we have team members responding to you over a live chat, we will also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of our presentations. Now, if we don't get to your question during the live webinar today, don't worry, because the awesome experts that we have here with us will be following up after we wrap. All right, next up, there's going to be lots of cool aha moments on the EcoCast today. And if you want to share those with your community, we've made it nice and easy for you. You can use the Twitter button right there in your audience console, and the hashtag for today's EcoCast will be automatically added to your post. All right, our last stop on this guided tour, be sure to check out the handouts tab for some awesome resources and takeaways from our speakers here today. We have an info pack collection, solution briefs, white papers, data sheets, free trials, ebooks, upcoming webinars, and more. So many great resources, so be sure to go explore. Now, if that wasn't enough fun, we also have some exciting prizes that we'll be giving away throughout today's EcoCast. I'm going to tell you a bit more about those later on, but a few quick reminders for you all. First, you do need to be here live in attendance at the EcoCast in order to qualify to win a prize, and we will follow up with all of you after we wrap. Now, all winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. Now, if you don't know what those full T's and C's are, that's fine. We've got the full thing for you. Just head on over to that handouts tab, click in, scroll down to the bottom, and you'll find them waiting for you there. Now, the absolute most important thing to remember is that we love getting all your insightful questions during these live webinars. In fact, we love it so much that we actually have a special additional prize for all you inquisitive folks out there. So in today's EcoCast, we will be giving away a prize for the best question asked in each of our live sessions. Now, the expert speakers and teams will review all questions asked after we wrap the webinar, which means that even if your question does not get read out in a live session, there is still a chance to win. If you are a lucky winner here today and you would like to donate the value of your prize, we have several wonderful organizations that we partner with. So let us know when we follow up about your big win, and we'll get that rolling for you. Again, we are so happy to have you all here with us live at the EcoCast today, and we want to keep that good feeling going, so let's connect on social media. Reach out and connect with Actual Tech Media on Twitter and on LinkedIn. We have lots of great content, and we always want to hear from you. Now, if you're looking for more awesome content and resources right after we wrap the EcoCast today, be sure to subscribe to the Actual Tech Media channel on YouTube. Another fun way to win a prize and, hey, grow this awesome community is to refer an industry friend or a coworker to the Actual Tech Media webinar series. Now, you'll find a link to do that right in your handouts tab, and you will also be automatically redirected at the end of the webinar. And both you and your coworker or friend could win a prize, and we hold those drawings every month. So be sure to refer a friend because, hey, it could quite literally be a win-win situation. Next, we have a cool opportunity for all the decision makers out there to get connected with new and emerging tech and innovative vendors. Here's how it works. All you need to do is click on the link in your handouts tab, fill out a quick application, and the Actual Tech crew will then match you with some vendors that we think you should probably be chatting with based on your needs. There will also be fun opportunities that you get to choose to join in, like surveys, test runs, new solutions, extended demos, and so on. You'll get some chances to win extra prizes, you'll chat with great people, and you'll learn about the hottest new trends in tech. So be sure to apply, or hey, send that link to a decision maker on your team. Now, I want to take a quick minute here to remind you all about one of my favorite resources, and that is ransomware.org. You can find out everything you need to know about ransomware, how to prepare, prevent, and recover. This site is jam-packed with information, helpful tips, checklists, strategic approaches, case studies, everything you need in one place. So wherever you are in your ransomware preparedness journey, there is something for you at ransomware.org. Go check it out and start exploring. All right, I have one more exciting resource I have to tell you about today, and that is the Gorilla Guide Book Club. It's going to give you access to free enterprise IT books authored by top industry experts, so you can stay up to date on trending enterprise technology. And yes, these books will work on your Kindle, your mobile device, and as I said, they are completely free. You can download these awesome resources at gorilla.guide, and there's a link for you in that Handouts tab as well. All right, well, we have covered a lot of important things already, and I don't know about you all, but I am excited to dive in. So let's get going. All right, my friends. Well, it is definitely time to jump into the good stuff here, because today we are talking about hyperautomation, the intersection of AI, data analytics, and security. I am so excited to get into this conversation because hyperautomation is really thrilling, right? We're strategizing ways that we can do more with less and as fast as we can without sacrificing quality or security. I mean, how cool is that? And when we add in these nuances, when we take some time to dig in a little bit on data analytics, when we're talking about security, when we're talking about AI, we basically have a trifecta of some of the coolest and most important topics in our minds, in our discussion boards, wherever we're talking about these things today, right? So we're going to talk today about that automation, about that personalization, speed, threat identification, basically all the coolest superhero stuff that we do all here in one EcoCast. And today we get to chat with some innovative experts from leading companies like ReliaQuest, Radiant Security, and Astronomer, who are here today to share their solutions, their tips, their trends, and all of their best practices. I cannot wait to get into this conversation with all of you today. I hope that you all get engaged, ask those questions, post. I see all the highs and the hellos in the chat, and I love that. So keep that rolling. Before we dive into our content, I just have a few things that I want to make sure we cover so that you can get the most out of your day today. Now, I'll reintroduce myself again. My name is Jess Steinbach. I'm a moderator here at Actual Tech Media. My friends and fellow moderators, that's Scott Becker and Keith Ward, will be here with us on the live chat today. And before we get into it, you know, we got to talk about those prizes. So today on the EcoCast, you could win one of three $300 Amazon gift cards. We will be giving those away to 3 lucky winners who are here live and present with us on the EcoCast. Now, I did mention this earlier in the housekeeping chat, but you can find the full terms and conditions linked in the Handouts tab. So if you have any questions about those T's and C's, head on over and check them out there. All right, well, with that, we are ready to get this EcoCast rolling. Now, you can see up on the screen here, we have one heck of a keynote speaker to kick things off, a returning face, and an absolutely fascinating human. I always learn something from our chats with Bill, besides just enjoying the joy that he clearly brings to the storytelling. So, of course, I would love to introduce you all to the one and only Bill Clayman, board member, technology advisor at Neuro. Bill, thank you so much for being here with us to kick off this super cool hyper-automation EcoCast. I cannot wait to hear what's in store for us today. So, Bill, take it away.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this very important EcoCast, hyper-automation, the intersection of AI, data analytics, and security. All right, listen, we're going to have a really important conversation here. I know everybody understands automation. I know everybody understands, you know, how to make things work a little bit more efficiently, but we are going to be exploring a topic that broadens out that chat a little bit. So stay tuned and buckle up. We're gonna have a bit of a chat here as far as what automation is and kind of the future of what it looks like. I am Bill Clayman, board member here at Neuro. I'm actually working on a lot of really cool data and automation projects. I am the AFCOM Data Center World Program Chair and the contributing editor over at Data Center Knowledge, Data Center Frontier, Information Week, and a couple of other really fun publications. Thanks for sticking around with me for a little bit here. This is going to be a very long chat. So listen, if you have questions at the end of this, comments, concerns, I'll be around. But before we do, hyper automation. Now, if you were around last time, I had a chance to talk about SuperCloud. Now, this is not a brand new Marvel superhero, rather a new way to approach cloud computing. But today, we're going to be talking about hyper automation. So let's get started. What is hyper automation? What does it even look like? I don't think this is it. I don't think it's automation plus coffee equals hyper automation, even though that would be like the coolest definition ever. And this would make my life really easy because I would just like, that's it. This is hyper automation. Have fun, everybody. No, unfortunately, we're going to have to dive in a little bit more into this. Hyperautomation, and I promise I have a really good definition for this. I want to mention just why it's important. And I was totally going to throw up a definition here initially and, start just diving into this conversation. But, we do have a couple of minutes here together to cover this. So one of the things that I really want to talk about as it relates to this new term, and if this is a new term for you, again, I'm sorry for throwing in another marketing term into your lexicon, but the concept of hyperautomation specifically revolves around your organization's ability to sculpt change. And that's an important concept to understand in today's economy. And obviously, a connected world and a really digital ecosystem is how capable are you to sculpt change around your business. So you can see that it's really one of Gartner's top strategic technologies for last year, for this year, and actually for the next few years, including things like AI engineering, decision intelligence, composable applications. And you see some of these other things that engineer trust and accelerate growth. But interestingly enough, hyperautomation specifically helps sculpt change within the organization. So I really want you, everybody on this call, just for 1 second, put that in the back of your mind. Hyperautomation as an engine for sculpting change. All right, cool. Let's keep that in the back of our mind. So as I promised you, I do have a definition for it. So I do want to make sure we cover that here a little bit. So when we look at hyperautomation, there's a really good high level viewpoint of this. And we're going to talk about how it impacts obviously our current landscape, and obviously with the title of this EcoCast, what it does with AI, data analytics, and security as well. So hyperautomation at the highest level possible refers to a combination of advanced technology such as artificial intelligence, RPA, robotic process automation, even machine learning to automate and optimize business processes at scale. Now, when we look at the current business landscape, why is it important to us? Why are we talking about it? Is that hyperautomation has become an increasingly important in today's business landscape because organizations are striving to improve operational efficiency, reduce costs, and enhance customer experiences. And really, all around this, you have AI as the involvement in the development of intelligent systems that perform human-like efficiency in human-like intelligence. Around hyperautomation, data analytics to focus on the extraction of meaningful insights from data, and obviously security, where we look at the protection of data and systems from unauthorized access and threats. Now, all of that sort of combines together. I promise I'll show you how. But really, we're trying to create better intelligence, right? We're trying to create a system that supports customers, ecosystems, IT systems, and things. All of these things that ultimately are able to connect together. So at the highest level possible, let's also look at AI, data analytics, and how it impacts this new concept of hyperautomation, the synergies between all of them. So AI and hyperautomation really do play hand in hand. I can't stress this enough. We use this data, we use AI to impact how we make better decisions. So they go hand in hand because they empower hyperautomation to achieve advanced level automation, decision making, and problem solving. And I promise I want to expand on that in just a little bit because it is an important concept. We also are capable of enhancing decision making, where AI enables hyperautomation to make much more intelligent decisions based on data analytics, patterns, predictive modeling, resulting in faster and more accurate decision making. And here's the other one. It's not just robotic process automation, RPA. We are trying to inject intelligence, greater level of intelligence here as well, where we leverage AI to automate complex cognitive tasks that traditionally require human intervention, leading to increased operational efficiency and reduced errors. Now, this is where, don't hold your breath, things like generative AI really kick in. So if you have a large language model working behind a hyperautomation engine, oh my gosh, you could do some really, really advanced things. For example, a hyperautomation architecture that learns upon itself. So every single time you make an adjustment and you ask it a question, it takes that as an iterative step to make the next automation process even more effective and more intelligent. So we're not just trying to look at patterns as they come along. We're learning from those patterns, injecting into our models, and actually creating a much more intelligent architecture to make better decisions, to inject that level of intelligence, and again, to promote change within our organization so we can adapt to our organizations, to our business, to our market, and so on. Very, very cool stuff. But where does security ultimately play into this? Because obviously we have to talk about it. So I have to mention this, and everybody listening, this is your chance to get off your Amazon shopping list and pay attention. Security is a really critical consideration in this entire chat that we're having here around hyperautomation, because What we're talking about presents a little bit of a unique security challenge due to the integration of multiple technologies and the increased exposure of data. So we have to look at security from a different paradigm where we implement it to protect against new and emerging threats and vulnerabilities. So you have to ensure that in your architecture, hyper-automated environments, you have to implement very robust threat detection, prevention mechanisms, including real-time monitoring, anomaly detection, and access control. And as far as data privacy is concerned, that's going to be on the utmost importance because you have to secure these connectivity mechanisms. So encryption, data access controls, compliance with privacy regulations, they must be in place, especially if you're working with various types of environments or you're integrating different systems together to create greater levels of intelligence. Now, I want to cover a couple of things that I've seen in the industry and when I've worked with automation projects that are challenges, I guess, places where we hit a few road bumps, or few road bumps. I promise I can talk. First of all, complexity and integration. We are involving multiple different kinds of technologies together here into one intelligent system, which can be complex and challenging due to differences in architecture, protocols, and data formats. So please take care in how you integrate these together. Another big element is your work with good partners. Really, you don't have to do any of this stuff alone because hyper automation really does enhance your business. But again, you don't have to go on this journey alone. At the very least, start asking questions. Where can I improve my architecture? Where am I lacking a skill set? Because from there, you might need expertise in automation technologies, data analytics, and security to improve what you're doing specifically. So that's where you could potentially turn to a partner to help you deliver some of these solutions. And finally, change management. This has been a bit of an issue for a lot of folks, especially when you introduce new technologies or new terminology like hyper automation, because sometimes people are resistant to change. So ensuring a smooth transition, maximize adoption and benefits, you need to incentivize the right behavior and create shared responsibility around hyper automation. Show the people how it impacts their role, how it doesn't replace them, and ultimately creates more value for everything that they do. So remarkably, change is one of the biggest challenges, I think, with working with people to help them see how powerful these solutions are and what they can ultimately do with them. So before we run out of time here, we're going to be talking about hyper automation. You're going to be hearing more conversations throughout the day. I kind of want to take a pause here. I got a minute left. I actually want to show you this stuff in action, what it's doing in the industry. These are real use cases that I had a chance to talk to some folks in the industry. Hey, how are you using our hyper automation? And they came back to me some really cool, fun examples. So in AI, hyper automation can be applied in AI-powered chatbots, virtual assistants, natural language processing systems to enhance customer service and automate data analytics, obviously support decision-making as well. And when it comes to data analytics specifically, hyper automation is utilized to automate data collection, pre-processing, predictive modeling, and even generating automating insights into reports. And finally, in security, yes, you can actually integrate hyper automation into some of your security practices. You can strengthen operations via threat detection, incident response, vulnerability management, and even enabling a faster response time to reduce the chance of human errors or somebody missing something that happens inside of it. And again, using things like generative AI can really impact how well your hyper automation models learn. So looking out ahead as we sort of wrap up this conversation, it's important to know that there's a lot that's going to be changing. New and emerging technologies are going to be interconnected together. Things like blockchain, edge computing, the Internet of Things as we become even more connected together. Obviously, with AI continue to evolve, we are using these advancements to further enhance our capabilities around application delivery, empowering people, and obviously helping them do more with this. And obviously with data and security, it's key to understand that there's no slowdown. Security is going to continue to be a really impactful part of our conversation. So using new techniques such as augmented analytics and advanced threat detection to support the expanding role of hyper automation is really important to understand. So some final thoughts as I leave you here. I really want to make sure that as you go on this journey, as you listen to all these conversations that are going to be happening today, you collaborate between IT and your business. This cannot be a siloed operation because IT teams can provide really that technical expertise and support, while the business teams can literally give you the domain of knowledge and requirements of what they need from hyper automation to be successful. And as a really important final note, please remember that this is an iterative process. There is no hyper automation button and you're done. It truly is a learning concept that you have to continuously evolve. And a big part of this is that you will see a lot of really big benefits, improved efficiency and productivity, error reduction, cost savings. But as long as you work together to continuously improve them and you have that collaboration between people, business, and IT, that's where hyper automation really, really has its impact. I hope that was impactful for you. And we're going to have a wonderful rest of this conversation. By all means, connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, where you can follow me on my website, Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it these days. But hey, hyper automation is pretty important. Make sure you continue this conversation, see how it helps your business. And in light of continuing this conversation, I'm going to pass it back to our wonderful moderator to keep this conversation going. Thanks, everybody.
Oh man, Bill, thank you so much. I was thinking like, oh, this was my key takeaway. And then every time I thought that, you'd give me another key takeaway that like just so many interesting things. I really, that iterative process thing is really sticking with me. The change management points really, really sticking with me. I think we forget that so often. And then, just asking questions. How simple is that? And yet it really is the root of this innovative process and that iterative process as well, is constantly evaluating, constantly asking questions. And that is why it's so great that all of you are here today, because you are clearly asking yourself questions. Are there changes that we could make? Are there things that we could up level or enhance? And in line with that, we have a quick question for all of you. So our question is, what's your time frame? What do you have in mind? Are you thinking short term? Are you thinking long term? And there's no wrong answers here. We're not publishing your results. So if you think you have a different answer than people in your company, don't be worried about that. What we're curious about is just wanting to make sure that we're getting you information that hits where you're at. So if you need to make decisions very quickly, we want to make sure that we're providing that story. If you need to have things that are a little bit more longer term, you're thinking with that strategic lens, then we want to make sure that we're hitting that higher level, that storyline that's going to fit where you're at. So click on the poll there. Let us know what your timeline is for making a change at your company when you're thinking about, obviously, hyper automation. That's our whole story today. That's our whole theme of being here. All right. Well, while you guys are taking a second to do that, I'm going to get things rolling, and we're going to start with our first session here today, because boy, do we have a lot of content coming your way. So it's time to get rolling. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce you to our first expert presenter on today's EcoCast. And as you can see, we are starting out on a great note with the ReliaQuest crew. We have an awesome expert here with us today, and that is Dylan Hancock, Senior Technical Marketing Manager at ReliaQuest. Dylan, thank you so much for being here to get us started on the EcoCast today. Now, I know that you have a lot of great stuff planned for the audience today. We also wanted to leave some time for questions at the end, so we got a lot to do. Dylan, I'm going to hand things right on over to you. Take it away.
All right. Thanks, Jess. Really appreciate it. Great to be joining all of you today, and excited to be talking to you about applying automation to security operations, and specifically here at ReliaQuest, how we're accelerating detection, investigation, and response using hyper automation within our security operations platform that we call Gray Matter. So with that, let's just jump into it. And first, I wanted to really start with why apply automation to security operations to begin with, right? What are some of the challenges that we're looking to face, and how are we addressing them? And the first foremost is overcoming tool sprawl. So as organizations make additional investments in cybersecurity, that typically comes in the form of new tools, new telemetry, and automation within a security operations platform provides that unified data layer. So we're overcoming the tool sprawl that we're commonly seeing today. The second one is alert fatigue. So analysts are experiencing alert fatigue. So they're now facing a massive amount of alerts, stretching thin an already burdened team. So automating the investigation and response to these alerts empowers the analyst to be more effective and ultimately just have more fun in their jobs, right? Like focus on the things that they like and they matter most to them, and are more impactful to the organization. Additionally, having predefined workflows and processes, which drives much needed consistency within security operations. So this is ensuring that each and every alert is actioned with that same attention to detail. And finally, so these components are all coming together to accelerate that threat detection, threat response, ultimately reducing the dwell time environment for threat actors to complete their objective, which is potentially to deploy malware or ransomware, whatever that may be. Now, ultimately, I believe that fundamentally, security is a data problem, now more than ever, right? So it used to be, let's say 10 or 15 years ago, that security teams lacked the telemetry they needed to detect threats. But nowadays, they're actually burdened by the amount of data, the sheer amount of data that's available to them. In fact, we often help customers gain visibility by cutting through the noise and helping them focus on what matters most. As you can see here, every day we're analyzing billions of events, millions of alerts, and ultimately distilling that down into thousands of investigations, which we action on our customers' behalf. But in order to do this effectively, we need to rely on data analytics and hyperautomation to help us deliver on these outcomes. So let's see now how AI is enabling security hyperautomation. As we already discussed, there's a massive amount of data at our disposal, which helps AI models to leverage and ultimately find those needles in the haystack. Additionally, AI is capable of empowering those analysts by taking on the bulk of the repetitive tasks, allowing them to focus on what matters most, which is those strategic activities that really are driving outcomes for the customer. And finally, the dynamic decision-making that AI models allow for improves processes, makes them more efficient, more scalable across that full detection, investigation, response lifecycle. So with that being said, let's look at a journey of hyperautomation within security operations. And let's first start on the left-hand side here, and you'll see a little analogy that I'll be building out as we go along. So really first, we're starting with augmenting investigations, and that's about helping those analysts to do their work better. As you can see, the analogy we're using is a plane and the many different gauges on the plane that the pilots are using to get real-time information on their environment and their surroundings, right? Moving on now to the assist phase. So this is where we're focusing in on really what matters most in the moment. So instead of showing 100 different gauges with your altitude and your speed and whatever it may be, instead we have a couple screens that are showing you in real time what matters most to the pilot at any leg of the journey. So whether they're taking off or they're en route, maybe they're going in for a landing, right? The screens are showing exactly what they need for that moment in time, really, focusing in on what matters most to them. And there may be a ton of automation being done behind the scenes to get to the data that's being presented, but that complexity is obfuscated, right? And ultimately, what the information that's being shown is presented clear and in an easy to use manner for the pilots. And finally, we'll get to the last stage here, which is automating. So how you automate workflows, which is arguably the most important, but the most difficult stage to get to. This is where the plane in this example, right, is capable of flying itself fully from point A to point B without any human intervention or maybe with very limited human intervention. In the context of security operations, we're really focused on removing high time, low brain activity. And by automating the workflows here, we're allowing analysts to be more impactful in the work they do and the outcomes that they achieve. So now let's look at our approach to AI and hyperautomation and really how that's broken down here. And the first and foremost, the top component here is data. So we think everything here is really centered around data because as we discussed, right, security is a problem of data. Luckily, though, that can actually become a unique advantage if you know how to properly harness that data and you have the right data at your disposal. So here at ReliQuest, we spent the last decade and a half focused entirely on security operations. And thankfully, now we have a massive amount of data at our disposal, which we can use to train our models and use as a testing ground as well to validate the output of those models prior to putting them into production. The second component here is platform. So the platform that we use called Gray Matter Security Operations Platform provides the much needed visibility across all of the customer's connected technologies. So the tool sprawl that I talked about previously, as organizations look to increase their visibility, they'll add in additional tools, technologies. Gray Matter is providing the unified data layer there and able to bring that all together in a way that can then be actioned on. And finally, so all this is backed by the expertise of the ReliQuest team. So we have over 1,000 security professionals around the world. They all have a deep understanding of the challenges that security operations faces and how to solve them. And ultimately, I believe the models can only be as good as the people developing and deploying them And so that's really where the expertise comes in to help drive development and put guardrails around, where the automation makes sense and how to do it most effectively. So with that being said, we can take some time to look at examples of how we're applying AI automation. The first of which is looking at threat intelligence. So for those who don't know, threat intelligence can consist of many different sources, and typically we're looking at indicators of compromise. So that could be IP addresses, hashes, domains, things of that sort. Really, the challenge here is that threat sources are rarely in agreement on whether a particular IOC is malicious or not. Some may find it to be malicious. Some may just be late to the game, right? So in the moment in time when you're searching against a given IP address, you may have 5 sources that say it's malicious while another 10 don't. But if you come back a week later, that could be all 15 agree in agreement that it is. So it's really a question of how do you action on that, knowing that there's some variability there, and you're not going to get a clear, concise answer as to, is this good or is this bad? Thankfully, we actually understand, given all the time we've spent working with threat intelligence and running scans against these sources, we recognize which ones are more reliable, which ones aren't. We've also trained a series of models to interpret the signals that come from this threat intel, return back that final determination of either malicious or benign, along with a confidence interval, which is critical, right? Because if you just say yes or no, go ahead, but you have no confidence to back that up, there's very little that you can do in terms of actioning on the results here. But given that we're returning malicious, benign, as well as that confidence, that's where we really can take that a step further and use this in a larger workflow, which we'll see shortly. And this has been trained against our own experience, our own data, which we've captured over years of doing this manually. And ultimately, as a result of this, we're now to take action more quickly and confidently using this kind of workflow. So now looking more broadly at how this all comes together, we can see on the right-hand side here a sort of pipeline in which we're ingesting alerts and analyzing them. The first component, as you can see, right, is that threat intel, which is why I talked about it first. So really, again, what that's doing is taking any indicators of compromise that are related to that alert. It's going out searching and bringing back that summary for each indicator, whether it's malicious or benign, as well as the confidence interval there. So based on those findings, we then can use targeted queries that we will connect out to the connected technologies. So whether that's a SIM or a data lake, whatever repository you may have, we're going to go and find where those malicious indicators live, and any relevance they may have to the alert that we're actioning on in the moment in time. Additionally, we're going to be using both current and historical context to give us some more understanding of the environment and sort of better understand how this alert is triggering and what else it may be impacting. So that can really help us tell a larger story around the incident. It could also be looking at historical alerts, so things that happened a week ago or a month ago that may indicate whether this is a recurring issue or not. So for example, hey, we had this similar alert fire last month. It was closed out as a false positive, and we're seeing it again, and here are the reasons why. So that could be a completely separate workflow that kicks off to go through and tune that alert based on the understanding that we're getting multiple false positives here, all with very similar indicators or artifacts, and go through that process as well. And finally, so all this information is being distilled together into that determination of whether, once again, this alert is malicious or benign. And this process that may have once taken an hour, 2 hours, depending on the complexity of the situation, all the technologies that the analyst needs to jump between, all that can be done within a matter of seconds or minutes now. And again, based on this output and the confidence backing it, we can now kick off automated actions. And that could be things like blocking the malicious indicators, resetting user credentials, Ultimately, so these AI models can make those recommendations based on the findings and then go take those actions as well. And I just wanted to reiterate here, the critical importance of this, right? As companies are looking to invest in new technologies, looking to get more visibility across their environment, that adds to the burden of being able to do this process quickly, efficiently, and consistently, like we talked about previously. And so being able to do so through these automated workflows, leveraging hyperautomation is absolutely paramount for organizations as they're facing today's threats and trying to drive that efficiency and scalability across their security operations journey. Now, with that being said, I just want to take a step back and look at the larger picture here. And this is how we're seeing security operations as a workflow, leveraging ReliaQuest Gray Matter, as well as the hyperautomation that we've been talking about today. As we start on the left-hand side, you can see all those disparate technologies. And it could be one or many, right? So a customer could have several SIMs in place, and all of those alerts, as well as many of the other tools they have connected, are going to be generating context, as well as alerts and incidents that need to be fed into the centralized platform here, which is Gray Matter. Being able to leverage all that data and context effectively and efficiently is really requiring the use of the advanced analytics and AI models that we talked about today and provide that actionable output. As a result, we're able to reduce the alert noise that we're seeing from our customers' environments. We're able to give them only the most actionable information. And ultimately, right, that's unifying and automating that full detection, investigation, and response lifecycle for the customer. What that translates to is faster response times, as well as reduced burnout on the customer security teams, as they're only being escalated to the most critical threats, things that we have made already action on their behalf, and just sort of notifying them of that in sort of a summary or recap of the incident in question. So, Jess, with that, that's all that I've got at the moment. Any questions from the audience?
Yeah, Dylan, thank you so much. What a great presentation. You crammed a lot of information into a short period of time. And I know the audience was really getting into it because we got a lot of great questions. So we're going to jump into those. You ready for some Q&A?
Yeah, let's do it.
Alrighty. Let's start with this one here. What impact have you seen hyperautomation make to your operations?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? So we talked a lot about at a high level, what hyperautomation can do, but getting into actual specifics of metrics and such, right? So that incident analysis pipeline that we talked about before, that's really driving over a 90% reduction for our customers in the amount of alerts that they're seeing through that unification, normalization. And that's pretty incredible, right? Because you think about customers seeing hundreds and hundreds of alerts on a daily basis. Now, if they're getting 10 at most, right? And maybe of those 10, we've been able to action 5 on their behalf. That's really driving down what they need to focus on and allowing them to really spend the most time on what matters most to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And really taking down that burnout rate and that, fatigue, alert fatigue, and all of those really important things. That's a huge ROI. Is that reducing staff needs as well?
Yeah, so it's allowing organizations to both be more efficient and scalable in their operations, as well as potentially. So let's say a company's looking to scale and grow double next year, right? Instead of having to double their staff as well, they may need to bring on 1 or 2 additional analysts. And it's really changing the game in terms of what that looks like. We have customers who have a security team of 1 and are able to really action everything through the outputs that we give to them.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because I did see a few questions come in, and we always get these. The audience with us here today is a wide range of size of organization. So we have those big enterprises and we have those teams of 1, and I do think a lot of times that comes up. Is this going to work for me? Is this going to make sense for me in terms of cost and in terms of people? And so what I'm hearing from you is not only is this going to work for any size team, but it might even help you keep your team needs a little bit on the lower side as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that we're really in tune with, right? So we work with some of the largest organizations as well as smaller organizations, like I said, with a security team of one. And that's something that, we're really proud to be able to deliver the same outcome regardless of the size and complexity of that environment. And I'll say, if anyone is interested in reaching out and knowing more about that, we're actually working on some behind the scenes sort of ROI calculators to show you, regardless of the size of your environment or sort of what you're looking to protect, how we can provide value to you and ultimately, help you save money as you're looking to secure the organization.
That is so cool, because that, you're answering questions before I can ask them. Because one of the questions we got is what's the ROI? How do I make this argument to my team? And I think that is something that comes up a lot. Is the folks in our audience are taking it to other members of their team, to people that they have to get the budget approval. They have to be able to make that argument, and so you're handing them the tool for that. That's really exciting.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it makes the justification a lot easier. And look, I mean, ultimately, everyone wants to secure their organization. They just need to be able to justify, the cost and to what extent. And we're making that a little bit easier for them.
Cool. All right. Well, let's get into a few more questions before we have to wrap here. What kind of AI models are you using?
Yeah. So this is something that we spent a lot of time thinking about and looking at. And the funny part, right, is that the whole, AI revolution, if you will, around large language models came about earlier this year. But it's something we've been focused on for several years now. And so our AI models are both a conjunction of those traditional training models that you'd think of, as well as some of the newer large language models that you may have heard of as well. And we're really looking to take a hybrid approach there, which means we're using, let's say, GPT, which is hosted in Azure, right? So an enterprise service there. But we're also able to create targeted, smaller models that we host internally. We fine tune using our own data, and that allows us to be more specific with the tasks that we give it. So for example, of that threat intelligence that we talked about earlier, right? That's one where we built our own model from scratch to do that. And really we found that it's more efficient. B, it's ultimately cheaper to scale. And then C, it's proving to have better performance than if you were to go out to a GPT or some massive model that's been trained on, the whole internet and try to ask it to do specific security related tasks.
Right. Yeah. And of course, there's all kinds of compliance issues with that as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, we're getting close to the end of time, but I have to ask this one because I'm so glad somebody asked this. I'm really curious about your answer here, because all the technology we're talking about, if the good guys have it, the bad guys have it, right? So
Sure.
Question here, how do you see adversaries using AI and hyperautomation as we move forward?
Yeah, so already today we're seeing some adversaries using it to improve their phishing campaigns, right? So they're using something like a ChatGPT or some sort of equivalent in order to basically write better emails, more compelling emails, and send those out at scale to organizations. And we're seeing, they're having some success there. However, I think looking further ahead, we really need to think about how the nation state actors are going to be leveraging this. And I think that really comes down to, again, like hyperautomation, where they're looking at how they can scale an end-to-end process of infiltrating an environment, performing lateral movement, escalating privileges, and ultimately, exfiltrating data, all without any human intervention, right? And think about if you can do that end-to-end workflow at scale, that's a pretty scary proposition. So that's where, again, we really need to look at the ways in which we can scale this technology on the defensive side in order to help to combat some of that ultimately we're going to be seeing in the next, let's say, several years as the technology progresses and as they have time to build out those models.
Yeah, I keep thinking, everyone kind of has the same playbook, but you're just trying to find that slightly different play, and I'm picturing all the X's and O's on the football on the quarterback's arm there. So if you had to give us, Dylan, a little bit of a key unique, the one thing you'd want us to know that makes ReliaQuest stand out, what would you say that is?
Yeah, it really comes back to the data and the platform, right? So being able to unify everything across all of our customers' technologies using gray matter as our security operations platform. It's something that we've been doing for years now, and it really sets us apart. And through that, we're able to deliver the outcomes that otherwise we wouldn't be able to. And I'd say, if you're interested in learning more about us or seeing a demo of gray matter and how that really comes to be, happy to go into more detail on that, and would love to get another conversation set up.
Yeah, absolutely. So is that kind of the first step to getting started that you'd recommend, that demo, or do you want us to visit the website? What would you suggest is the way to jump in?
Yeah, so either or, right? If you're really in love with everything we talked about today and you want to get started immediately, feel free to reach out and set up a demo. We'd love to do that. If you need some more information about what we do or how we're applying automation specifically within operations, security operations, we have great content on our website, and I believe we have some of it linked here for you to access as well.
Awesome. Okay, that is a great way to get started, Dylan. I wish we could keep going with this chat because obviously I know there's so much more to cover and it's constantly evolving, which is so exciting. So we'll just have to have you back on again, but we'll leave it there for now. And we very much appreciate you being here with us today.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jess. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Well, as I said, big thank you to Dylan and big thank you to all of you who asked some great questions. I love seeing these questions come in. And now we have a question back for all of you. And what we're wondering is, what is the additional information that you would like to get about the ReliaQuest solution? So think of this as like your Christmas shopping list. I know. Who wants to think about Christmas shopping already? But it's coming for us, folks. So here you go. Getting really started on your Christmas shopping list. Get the stocking stuffer of your choice. Would you like a data sheet, a technical white paper, a case study? What is going to be helpful for you? And think about what you need to bring to your team as well, not just what you need, but what information do you think would be useful when you're explaining this and recapping some of this to folks on your team? So while you guys are clicking on that, I will also remind you to head over to the handouts tab. Be sure that you spend some time with the ReliaQuest Gray Matter Solution Brief. This is a security model index, board ready metrics for managing your security operations. I love that approach because in so many cases, this is what we're thinking about, right? What are the metrics? What are the ROIs? What is the story that we're bringing to those members of our team, those decision makers who need to be able to see the value in what we're putting together? So here you go, made it nice and easy. There's that solution brief for you. Go spend some time with that. Okay, so keep the questions coming in. Keep clicking on the wish list on your screen. Get that handout downloaded. You have a lot to do. While you're doing all of that, I will go ahead and give away a prize. We're going to do a $300 Amazon gift card, and this is going to go to someone who is here live and present with us at the EcoCast, and that special lucky someone is Denise Holland of Maryland. Denise Holland of Maryland. Congratulations to you, Denise. You have won a $300 Amazon gift card. And as always, we will follow up with you after we wrap. So stay tuned for that. Now, keep in mind, there is that best question gift card from each one of our sessions. So even if Dylan and I did not get to your question live, you are still entered to win just by asking a question. So keep those questions coming in. We love to see them. And you are, hey, helping the conversation move along, but also entering yourself to win that $50 Amazon gift card. So keep the questions rolling. All right, well, I think it is time that we keep things moving along in this EcoCast because we get to keep the good times rolling. We are bringing out the Radiant Security team. I am so happy to introduce you all to our next expert speaker, Orion Cassetto, security evangelist at Radiant Security. Orion, thank you so much for being here with us today at the EcoCast. We've had a great day so far, and I am so excited to hear more about Radiant Security. So I'm going to step back, and I'm going to hand things right on over to you. Take it away, Orion.
Thanks, Jess. I appreciate that. So, hopefully you can see my screen. So today we'll be talking about how AI is reshaping security operations. So it's going to have a lot of overlap with some of the concepts in the previous talk, but we're going to expand on some of them. Real quick about who I am. As Jess said, so I'm a security evangelist. I've been in the industry for a little over 15 years, much of that time in the trenches of the security operations world. I've been at companies like Exabeam and Imperva, and I'm a frequent speaker at trade shows and writer for security pubs. So what we'll be talking about today, we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the world of security operations. Then we'll talk about where the SOC very specifically is struggling and what we need to do to fix it. Then we'll talk about how AI can help, and we'll do a very short live demo at the end of the session. So I'm going to kick things off. So first and foremost, cybersecurity has an effectiveness problem. So there's a lot of indicators you could use to get to the same place. What we're looking at here is stats over the last 10 years for a number of breaches annually in the Verizon Data Breach Investigation Report. The punchline is essentially things aren't good. Through no lack of effort, capital, innovation, we are at a spot where we're essentially 500% worse than we were 10 years ago. So this is a big problem. And first, what do we need to do to prevent these breaches? So if we want to kind of change the tide of this trend, what do we need to do? First and foremost, we need to be able to find attacks. That's a prerequisite. After that, we need to conduct investigations. And then once we've done that investigation, we understand what needs to happen, what are the things that we need to fix, where has the attack propagated, then we need to respond quickly. So the net of this whole thing is find attacks, figure out what happened, respond quickly. So far, so good. However, when it comes to finding attacks, we find ourselves in this scenario where essentially we have way too many security products. So the average large enterprise security team is managing around 75 products. Not all of those are detection products, but usually a SOC has dozens of products. And they are creating thousands or tens of thousands of alerts per day, which gets us to this proverbial haystack that we always talk about in security that we need to find our needles in. So it's a really, really huge amount of work, and we have, really not the capacity to do it all. So over the last 20 years, we've done everything possible to this haystack. We have centralized it, we've searched it, we've filtered it, we've prioritized it, we've correlated it, and still we're at a spot where we are not able to efficiently find the needles in that haystack. And moreover, we've had all sorts of new technologies along the way to help us with that. Unfortunately, things like SIM, UBA, XDR, etc. While the promise is to find the needle in the haystack, they're actually usually generating even more alerts and lots more false positives. So they're actually adding more hay onto the haystack. And so the thing that we haven't done, and the thing that is key to dealing with this situation, is we actually need to look at every piece of hay. We need to triage and investigate absolutely every alert that comes in. And in doing so, we are assured to find the ones that are meaningful and true positives along the way. Now, you might be asking yourself, how is that possible? Because our triage and investigation still relies on manual effort. If you take a look at our processes and our tooling available, essentially at the beginning of our journey, when we're detecting threats, we have a lot of automation. We have tools that can help us to find things, to escalate things to us and say, hey, you know what? This is probably a critical alert. You should take a look at it. On the other end of our processes, we have all sorts of security automation. We have tools that have been in market like SOAR for the last half decade that can help us to automate. But still in the middle, we are reliant on humans and brain power and thinking and decision making, and that becomes this bottleneck. So given that bottleneck, how could we possibly get to a spot where we can look at everything? And that is where AI can help us. So the reason that we need AI is because we cannot possibly do this with humans. We're not at a spot where we can hire our way out of this. Year over year, our cybersecurity skills shortage has been getting worse. This year, we're up to 3.4 million empty roles, which is 26% up from last year. And if you look at it just from a trajectory standpoint, essentially the pace, the growth of demand is outstripping the supply of talent by 2x. And we're at a spot now where 70% of our organizations don't have enough people. So we got to look for new solutions. Where do we feel the pain specifically? Is that so if we're reliant on manual effort and we don't have enough people to conduct that effort, whether they're your people or they're the people that you've outsourced at an MDR or an MSSP, that means that work is going unfinished. So it's either getting filtered out, it's getting left undone, it's getting deprioritized, and we're looking at some subset of work. And that means that a real attacks can exist in the blind spots that are opened by that work not being finished. If we're missing real attacks or we're missing parts of attacks, that means that we're going to have an incomplete response. And all the manual effort that goes into triaging and investigation, so we're not missing things, is time consuming. And that means we have a slow response. So these are the things that we're going to need to fix. Okay. So how AI helps, essentially what it's doing is it's allowing us to get rid of the haystack. So if you were to just remove the hay, you'd end up with a pile of needles. And essentially, AI provides the first real opportunity for us to have unlimited triage and investigation capacity, thereby removing the hay. It also gives us the opportunity to make sure that every incident is automatically investigated, so nothing is getting missed and we are able to look at things deeply. So think of the investigation that your most skilled analyst could do, but doing it for every alert along the way. And by doing that, we're able to respond intelligently and enable true automation. It's going to get us to the spot where we can rapidly respond. If we're able to find everything along the way and convert that into a series of action items, then we can automate those actions and get the productivity gains that we need. So what does this actually look like? First, I want to make sure that we're level set on what AI is and isn't. So AI is the ability of machines to perform tasks that are typically associated with human intelligence, like learning, problem solving, and then, alert triage, incident investigation, etc. So this is what AI is. So AI has been in the news a lot this year. Most of it is, generative AI and large language models, which are essentially a way to convert, a thought, like tell me everything you know about this indicator of compromise, into a query over a large data set. That is functionally what you see here on this slide. So this is just in the run up to RSA this year, a bunch of announcements from security vendors that you probably know. And almost all of these are built on top of either SecPalm Generative AI, which is Google's large language model, or OpenAI or ChatGPT or some other public large language model. What they all have in common. So first and foremost, they help with innovation, but secondly, they all are essentially a way to ask questions of a very large data set. So anyone who's been in security operations for any length of time probably has some experience using Splunk. As you all know, one of the challenges is figuring out how to make a query that brings back the thing that you want. And so Splunk now has an AI assistant that says, hey, ask a question, I'll turn it into a query for you. In this example, look for Windows security events for failed logins by user, output time, host, and signature. That's way, way easier just an easier, more efficient way to ask your question. Same thing with this one. So this is Charlotte AI, which is a CrowdStrike product. Hey, Charlotte, do we have any vulnerabilities involving Microsoft Outlook? And lo and behold, there were 231 of them, and here they are. This is a vastly more efficient way to query data than doing it yourself. And most of the current generation of AI is things like this. It's essentially helping you to answer questions better, faster, and easier. And you know what? It absolutely provides for productivity improvements. Although I will say they're incremental. They are dependent on your analyst's understanding, which questions should I ask? What were the results? What do they mean? What do I do next? And how do I turn those into response steps? So essentially what we have is an analyst in the middle of your workflow, just like we had in the past, but they're much, much more efficient in getting the answers to the questions they ask. This is great and it is moving us forward, but it's not enough. In fact, if AI is going to solve this problem, it needs to take on a larger role in the security operations process and take some more of these tasks, these time-consuming, manual, tedious tasks away from the analysts so that the analyst's role in the process can shift. What does that actually look like? If we were to build an AI that's capable of doing this, essentially we need to train it on the on the data that an analyst would have. Analysts have, essentially environmental knowledge. So they've been at your organization, they've been in the seat for some period of time, and they're more effective on day 365 than they are on day 1 because they understand what's normal for your environment. They understand how things operate, who has access to what's normal, what's abnormal. Moreover, the analysts are very effective based on their length of time in seat anywhere. So they understand security best practices. They've seen things before. They understand certain types of attacks. If we're going to replicate that, we need to train on data like MITRE ATT&CK and CIS so that the AI can essentially understand what types of threats exist, their impact, how do you remediate them, so on and so forth. The next type of data that we're going to need to train on is security alerts. And here we're going to be looking at what's actually happening in your security tooling. And this is the starting point for this triage, investigation, and response process. And then finally, we need to train on the output of the system itself. We need to be constantly learning and training what's happened in previous incidents. What are attack trends across tenants and in the industry at large? what solutions have we taken? What actions have we taken? Have we seen false positives and negatives? And how does that influence our conclusions? So essentially, we need this as a knowledge base or a data fabric that we can use to make our decisions. Now, here's where things are going to change. So instead of just making an AI that helps you to answer questions, if you can create a feedback loop by making an AI that can both select the questions and find the answers, you can get to a world where you have exponential productivity improvement. So if we look at the data over there, or the diagram, essentially we start with the security alert. And instead of just having an analyst look at the security alert and figure out what questions to ask, like if it's a phishing phishing email alert, who looked at this, who clicked on an alert, where did the links go, are there any identity forms there on the other end of the page or the URL? The AI is looking at the information available and it's saying, okay, if I want to figure out if this thing is malicious or not, what questions do I need to ask, go get the answers to, that will get me one step closer to figuring out that conclusion. Then it's going to reevaluate the information that it has. It's going to ask that same questions again. Okay, based on my new understanding of the world, what questions do I need to ask and answer? And this kind of Q&A feedback loop essentially enables AI to move from a world of just being this assistant of helping you to answer questions more efficiently to being able to automate a lot more of the process, including alert triage and incident investigation. In fact, it gets us a lot further. So it gets us to a spot where analysts are provided with decision-ready results by the time that they see an alert. So this shifts the entire nature of their work. So if by the time that my analyst looks at an alert, they already know, is this thing malicious or not? What happened? What caused it? What do I need to fix? And then how do I fix it? That means that now my job is to validate those findings and then to automate the downstream work. And that is where you get true productivity increase. And that's what we built at Radiant Security. So our product is called an AI-powered SOC Copilot, and it's designed to boost your productivity, help you to find real attacks by investigating every alert that comes along, and then to drastically reduce remediation times. All right, so I'm going to show you guys what this looks like. So let me pull up a live demo. Give me just a second.
I'm here to give you a screen check, Orion, so I'll let you know when we see you.
All right. So in theory, you're looking. All right. Can you see my mouse as well?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So this is what the dashboard looks like. Essentially, when you come in, this is what you see. So across the top is how many security alerts have been received, then how many of those were turned into true positives that you'd need to look into, how many of them are still open, and how many of them are still live, meaning they haven't been contained and these threats are still spreading through your environment. This is a demo system, so it has a lot more incidents than you would see in a normal environment. In a normal environment, you see about a 95 or 99% drop off between security alerts into real incidents, meaning that 95 to 99% of alerts end up being false positives, and they're being triaged but not found to be malicious. So when you come in, here are essentially incidents that are open. So these are live incidents that need to be dealt with, or at least some of them are live. We can see some of them are abnormal login, some of them are phishing. I'm going to go into a phishing one just because it's very easy to understand all the mechanics of. But at this point, so an analyst would essentially be seeing an alert for the first time. They already know that it's malicious, and here's the information they're provided. It's everything that they need in order to understand what happened. So first off, I can see the actual alert if I want. So because this is a phishing email, you can see the phishing payload. You can see the alert parsed out into easily readable fashion. And I can see what happened. Let me zoom in a little, make it easier to read. What happened? So Shahar reported a new phishing email. 2 users received the email containing the link. One of them clicked on it. Then the attacker is now, and they put in their credentials. Now the attacker is actively abusing Shahar's credentials to log into Office 365. So that's the gist of what's going on. You can see the root cause analysis right here. And you can also see basically the information of this. If you were to conduct an investigation, what questions would you ask and what actually happened? So we can see who sent the alert. It's Johnny9999. What is the malicious URL? We can see who reported it. In this case, it is Shahar. We can see who else got the same email address. We can see who clicked on it. We can see any suspicious logins and so on and so forth. Now, the important thing to know is that this is not based on a playbook. This is all based on, it's dynamically generated. So every single time you get different things here, but it boils down into the same set of questions and answers. So for example, if this phishing email had a malicious attachment, then you'd see that. And then if that malware did something on the file system, then you'd see what it did. If that, ended up in a compromised credential, then you'd see which credentials are compromised and what they did. You're also given over on the right a series of calls to action. So by the time that I get here, I know not only what happened, but what do I need to do about it? So if I'm saying that this is a malicious email, I might want to block the sender. Malicious URL, I'm going to block the URL. If it's this person notified it or notified me, I should tell them what happened. Or, for example, we know that these two people got these malicious emails. I should find and soft delete them. If you click in here, you're given a set of instructions. So if you want to do this in PowerShell, you've got a pre-populated PowerShell. If you want to do it in the UI, you can do that. Or you can just click execute task. This makes it super, super easy. And if you execute task, we'll take care of the rest. So you come in here as an analyst, you look at your vastly reduced number of alerts, you know exactly what happened, and at the click of a button, you can automate the response. One of the questions that we always get is what's actually happening in the background and how did you come to these conclusions? So if we go in here, we can essentially see that this is what was happening during triage and investigation. And, every single time this is different. This is dynamically selected by the AI. It is not a static playbook. Essentially what it's saying is that, in this specific instance, we checked to see if this was part of a known phishing campaign. We looked for URLs. We can see we found a couple. We expanded and decoded and followed them. We can see several redirects. It solved a CAPTCHA along the way. If there's files and they're encrypted, it'll decrypt them. It'll try to crack the password. It'll do all sorts of things. It checked with threat intelligence. It looked to see if there's a login form. It used behavioral modeling to figure out if this is a normal login form for your organization. And eventually it came to the conclusion that this is malicious. And so this is the sort of thing that happens every single time. We want to keep it, an open, white box, easy to understand, transparent solution so that you're confident in the results. But we also want to get you to a spot where all of your alerts end up getting triaged, all of them end up getting investigated if they end up malicious, and then we present you with just the information that you need to know to understand a specific alert and to take action very quickly. So with that, Jess, I will hand it back over to you.
Well, awesome. And you nailed it. Okay, I was going to say you're still screen sharing if you don't want us to walk through the rest of your day with you, but you fixed it. All right. Well, thank you so much. That was such a great presentation, and I love getting to dig in a little bit. I love when we get to see those demos at the end. I'm going to very quickly move. I just want to make sure that this slide has gotten a little bit of airtime, and so we can get some of those contact insights. But I'm going to move over to a poll in just a second here. I'm giving you all a chance to get screenshots if you need it. All right, now we are going to leave this poll up while Orion and I dig into some questions. And the question that we have for you here is, what is the additional information you would like to get about the Radiant Security solution? Now, I'm calling it a poll, but really it's, as we talked about at the start of our day here today, it's a little bit more like a wish list, a shopping list. What is the information, the insight that's going to be most helpful to you as you move forward out of the EcoCast today? So we just got so much great information from Orion, and when you're thinking about it later, when you want to recall all of that insight, what is going to be helpful? Is that more of a case study? Maybe you want to get into a demo that's a little more personalized to you. What would be helpful for you? So click on that wish list, on that Christmas shopping list right now. And while you're doing that, Orion and I are going to dig into some questions. Are you ready?
Absolutely.
Pumped up and ready to go. What's really interesting is you answered a couple of the questions as they were coming in, and there were a lot of questions about that sort of replacement side, humans to AI. And I think that really comes up a lot. And I'm not really asking you a question so much as just saying I appreciate your take on that and spending a little time digging into that, because of course that is top of mind for a lot of folks. And also I really liked the haystack and needles analogy. I think that really resonated with a lot of people out there. For anyone out there that's also thinking about in terms of legacy systems and what they can replace versus what they're sort of building onto, we had a question come in about a SOAR. So how would you differentiate Radiant Security from a SOAR?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. That comes up a lot because, anytime you talk about automation, SOARs have kind of owned that verbiage. But
Yeah.
okay, so SOAR's job are essentially, general purpose automation tools for the security team. So you spend a lot of time, basically premeditatively figuring out what needs to happen, wiring it into a playbook, getting it up and running, mimicking your processes. So it's you essentially building this thing, and then it helps you to do some sort of task in your security operation program. This takes the complete opposite design principles. So it works out of the box. There's nothing to set up. You don't have to configure any playbooks. It just works. Now, the other main difference is that SOARs are essentially helpers. They help you to enrich data, to automate tasks, etc. But humans are still the ones who are doing the thinking. And the thinking is required to do triage and to do incident investigation. This is able to automate the triage and investigation, which a SOAR cannot. And that essentially changes what the human is doing and gives you way more productivity.
Yeah, which brings us right back to that, augmentation versus replacing.
Yep.
I'm going to feed to this next question here because I like this one. What if an attack changes types or data sources? And our audience says it's great that you can triage an alert, but what if the alert kicks off another different type of attack, like phishing that infects the host with malware or steals credentials?
Yeah, I mean, this is a major concern, because essentially, as I was saying in my presentation, you need to find the whole attack, because if you miss part of it, then you can't respond to it. So I would attack this from a couple of ways. So first and foremost, it's going to connect across the different data silos. But secondly, because we're looking at every single alert from all these products, if it doesn't catch it by looking at the phishing, then it'll catch it by looking at, anomalous logins with with your identity data, or it'll catch it when we're looking at your endpoint data. And essentially, because it's going to conduct a full investigation from any and all of those starting points and connect across the data silos, you essentially have all sorts of opportunities to get to the same place. Find it from phishing, find it from identity, find it from endpoint, find it from network, you name it.
Well, perfect. And I'm just checking our time here. We're going to be a little close to the end of time, but I am going to try to sneak in this last question for you here. Can you spend a little more time with the types of data sources? So what data sources do you support or need?
Yeah, so today we deal with email, which is both phishing and BEC, endpoint, so malware, ransomware, etc., identity, so your IAM data, authentication data, and network security data. In the near future, we'll do some more data types, so things like cloud security, but those are pretty much it today.
Well, those are good places to start. Orion, I wish we could keep going with this because there's obviously a lot more information to dig into, and I know our audience is really getting quite a lot out of it. So we will make sure that all the questions that got asked get sent to your team. So even the ones we didn't get to, you'll have a chance to get some answers back. But for somebody out there that is wanting to dig in a little bit, wants to get started with Radiant, what would you recommend as that first step to learning more?
Yeah, I mean, if you want general information, check out our website. But it's kind of one of those things that you need to try yourself to see the value of, and it can be set up in minutes. So contact us and come kick the tires.
I love that invitation. That's great. And I'm sure that there's a lot of folks out in the audience that will take you up on that. Orion, thank you so much for being here with us today. This has been a ton of fun.
My pleasure. Thanks for your time.
All right. And for those of you out there who are still asking those questions, keep those coming in. As I said, we're going to make sure you get some answers either over live chat or via email. Also, keep those poll response or that wish list response coming at us. And a last thing to do is to head over to the handouts tab. If you haven't already done this, make sure you go over to the handouts tab and get that solution brief from Radiant Security. It's Radiant Security AI-powered SOC Copilot. This is such a cool and engaging read. It's great data, a great storytelling process, and the graphics are amazing. Just really well done. So please do make sure you've got that handout. Hold on to it. Save that for after we wrap up today, because you're going to want to revisit that once we've finished our EcoCast today. All right, and the last bit of little insight that we're going to do here before we move on to our next presentation. Oh, look at that. It's time for a prize giveaway. So we have another $300 Amazon gift card that is going to one of you who is here live and present at the EcoCast. And that special somebody is Lonnie Cooper of Virginia. Lonnie Cooper of Virginia. As always, we will be in touch about claiming your prize after we wrap the EcoCast. Plus, keep in mind, we still have that best question gift card coming at you from each of our sessions. questions. So keep those questions coming in. Even if we don't have time to get to you live, you are still entered to win. That's important. Okay, my friends. Well, now I have some good news and I have some bad news for all of you. You ready? Okay. So we'll start with the bad news. The bad news is this is our very last presentation of the day. I know we're already at the end of our EcoCast, but here is the fantastic news. We get to wrap up our day today with the astronomer team, and I am so happy to introduce you all to our final speaker of the day, and that is George Yates, lead developer advocate. George, I have to say, cool job. And also, I'm very excited to hear a little bit more from you, learn a bit more about what's going on at Astronomer. So thank you for being here as our grand finale today. I'm going to hand things right on over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the wonderful intro. And so, yeah, today I am here to talk about Astro, which is Astronomer's flagship product, where data engineers and ML engineers meet. And what is Astro? What do we do? What is Airflow? Where's Airflow? I'm going to get into all that. I'm going to explain a little bit about a lot about what we do, and then talk about. I actually open the agenda slide. So give you an intro to Airflow, to Astro, go over, kind of set the stage for some of the challenges, some of the benefits with putting, ML and AI into production, especially in large organizations, and then finish it all off with some production ML ops use cases that we've seen with Astro, talk about why Astro really deserves to be at the center of the modern ML stack. And then I'll also show you how we're putting it in production ourselves for a nice little chatbot, because who doesn't love a specialized chatbot, right? So going to the next slide. So in the modern dataverse, there is really a pipeline behind every single process, every dashboard that a data analyst is, whipping up for an executive team. That data has probably gone through, 9 different steps, from extraction to cleaning, to ingestion, to, actually being surfaced in that dashboard. And in order to power that and power all of these different pipelines at scale, with the introduction of ML models, LLMs, AI, every company is thinking about, how do I do more with my data? And how do you do more with your data? You use Apache Airflow. So Airflow is a data orchestration tool that is purely Python based and is designed to really hook into every single piece of your data stack and allow you to schedule, set Pythonic dependencies, logic around individual tasks in all of your systems, and get more out of your entire data stack. And so it's used by some of the biggest and most innovative companies in the world, as you can see some of the logos here. And not only is it, beloved by the corporate community, but it is an open source project. It is the standard for data pipelines. If you haven't heard of Airflow before, really encourage you to check it out. We have an academy where you can get Airflow certified. And if you reach out to me, I'd be happy to give you a certification code. I'll actually flash on the screen later. And there's a lot of traction behind it. It started in 2014, and right now it's sitting at around 16 million monthly downloads, around 2,500 contributors, people that are actively, contributing their own code to the Airflow project. And then, you have the 31K GitHub stars, which is a controversial metric, but also it has a really large and thriving Slack community. And as you already saw before, it has a lot of adoption, not only among, open source people, but among big organizations. And so where Astronomer comes in into Airflow is we are really the driving force behind Apache Airflow. So around 2017, we kind of staked our ground as we are going to be the private stewards of the open source project. And so we drive 100% of Apache Airflow releases. We've contributed over the half of the current Airflow code. We have 16 of the top committers on our staff or board. And we have, this numbers actually today, I think we're at over 30,000 Airflow students trained in our academy. And that's purely just, an open source Airflow academy, trying to just educate people around Airflow as the open source stewards. And so just a very, very simplified way of showing you kind of, if you're not familiar with Airflow, how pipelines work is you'll have a series of tasks in kind of this DAG diagram. So a directed acyclic graph. And that means that it can't be a loop. So it has to be, constantly moving forward. And so you can see here, if tasks feed into each other for AI, ETL, business intelligence, data, really whatever workflow you want. If there isn't already a provider built for your particular application, you can build it yourself. And so Astro makes it super easy. Not only are we the open source stewards, but Astro is a fully managed and hosted platform for running Airflow. So historically, Airflow was a bit difficult to set up, just even locally, and then getting into production because it is the underlying architecture of Airflow is such that it's managing potentially hundreds of different compute nodes to power all of those different data pipelines I talked about earlier. And so what we do is we abstract all of that away. We do auto scaling. We make sure your applications are running with 100% data uptime, keep your data secure, and make it so that all you have to focus on doing is just writing your data pipelines and then forgetting about them. A quote from one of our customers that I always love is, before Astronomer, I had to think about Airflow all the time, and now I never have to think about Airflow. And that is really our goal, is just giving you a place where you can write really functional code, and then maintaining it, scaling it as your business grows, and then all built on the ultimately flexible Airflow platform. And so because you have such easy management of massive amounts of compute, you have a platform that can connect to really in almost any different any platform. That is why Airflow, or Astro especially, are really perfectly suited for handling your machine learning workflows. But before I talk about that, I kind of just want to set the stage as to why we're perfectly suited and talk about some of the common issues that come with machine learning. And so first is isolated development and deployment. Typically, a production grade machine learning workflow is going to encompass, you're going to have a vector embedding database. You're going to have LLMs. You're going to be managing probably at least 10 different services just for a relatively basic prediction workflow, right? And so setting up local development environments that requires, all of your developers have to have either their own copy of that individual, of all those different tools installed on their local machine, or they have to all share a developer environment, and then you're facing bottlenecks. Additionally, because, again, it's difficult to manage all these together. Every tool has their own, built-in scheduling or functionality. But if you're using all of those independently, it introduces a lot of issues with, lack of coordination, standardization, and that's especially challenging in machine learning workflows where you need to have so many different dependencies and interconnected tasks to actually produce workable models. And kind of compounding this is really just an overwhelming technology landscape. The machine learning and AI space is still very new, so you don't really have any of those kind of one-stop shop platforms where you can just go and have everything provisioned under one roof. So you have to manage a lot of different services, and you kind of need to figure that out on your own. And then finally, when you're working with personal data, user data, operational compliance hurdles just introduce even more friction into the wheels. And so that is why, the reason why people are willing to put up with all these challenges, the reason why, everyone still invests so much time in kind of building out their ML and AI operations is because of all the different benefits you can get. You can do better data prep. You can do better predictions. You can introduce better reliability. And in order to deliver all of these features, you need to be able to have a tool that can manage every single piece of the stack you see here. And that is where Airflow and Astro, as a data orchestration tool, are able to manage every single step of that workflow, all within one single pane of glass. So now, why Astro is a natural fit. If you have worked with data science, ML, you know that much of your work will be done in Python, which is great because Astro and Airflow are Python native. You write all of your DAGs within Python. And so introducing things like pandas or scikit-learn or any of your Python code and bringing it into a DAG is super easy. There's no complex wrapper or having to use any kind of special adjustments. You can just pretty much copy and paste it. And then you have a common interface where your data engineers, your data scientists, your ML engineers, they can all work within Airflow. They can all schedule their own individual workflows with Airflow DAGs because it's so adaptable to whatever use case they're using. And additionally, you have a really extensible ecosystem where if you want to connect to some kind of exotic service, some internal tool, you can standardize that with an operator that will just standardize that connection. So instead of each of your engineers having to figure out how to connect to something or how to run an operation, you can provide templates for them and just really allow them to scale their own work by leveraging the work of others. Additionally, the data agnosticness of Airflow is really important because especially when dealing with ML and AI workflows, because they require so many different and almost exotic types of data. Just relying on a standard SQL database isn't going to work because a SQL database can't store vector embeddings, right? And so you're going to need to be using and interacting and transforming data between different types. And so having Airflow as kind of the layer in which that happens, providing a agnostic environment for those transformations to occur, makes it much easier rather than trying to do direct point-to-point connections between those different services. And then just kind of extending the extensibleness of Airflow. It's also integrated with a lot of different data science tools. You can interact with it, like MLflow, Databricks, OpenAI, and I'll kind of show you what this looks like in a second. You'll also can naturally layer on all the monitoring and alerting features of Astro and Airflow onto your ML and AI pipelines without needing to kind of use or set them up natively within those tools, but they might not be built for it. And then you have fully pluggable compute. So you're able to scale the amount of compute nodes that are attached to a particular Airflow environment, choose different sizes of worker nodes, and have them all available on one environment so that you can do things like task optimized compute, have really large computers handling your complex workloads, and having really small computers handle your more simple like transfer operations. And then we also, as your organization gets more mature, you have all the additional capabilities like CI/CD, pipeline versioning for model management and auditing. And so that's kind of a lot of different reasons why it's a good fit. But I also wanted to talk about hey, even though we're a good fit, why is this important? Why is the ability to do all these things and manage this amount of scale really beneficial to a business? And that's where I have one of my favorite success stories with Astro, which is Laurel. And so Laurel uses Airflow as really a central component of their entire MLOps stack. They're orchestrating every piece of their ML pipelines from model testing, experimentation, deploying, validation. The whole model lifecycle and the whole ML lifecycle is all managed through Airflow. And so the reason why it's important for Laurel is an AI company that seeks to automate and bridge the trust gap between professional services like being a lawyer and their clients. So what Laurel does is it has a piece of software that will plug into your computer. It will produce an automated timesheet of what you've done within that day in the format you defined. And what's really, really special about it and what Airflow has enabled them to do is actually have individual models for each of those lawyers that gets trained on, hey, what are this lawyer's patterns? What are they typically doing? If I notice that he's on, legalbooks.com a lot for 60 minutes, I know that is a legal research site. And so I'm going to mark that whole hour as legal research, right? And so, because you have one model for every single client, this becomes incredibly large amount of pipelines that you need to manage. And so that's where Laurel leverages the dynamic DAG generation capabilities of Airflow so they can have a template model that they use that then is customized for each individual customer, and Airflow takes care of the creation, the management of every single one of those DAGs without really much manual intervention. And then you just have a single metrics DAG that runs every hour to make sure that all those models are working properly. And so this has really allowed them to have one centralized, complete MLOps solution. And so that is one example, and just some of the benefits here. LLM fine tuning, just all those different steps that I mentioned before. Orchestration encompassing. Laurel really is the living example of being able to do all those different steps with Astro. Next, we have RAMP. And so RAMP is a little bit different. It's a little bit more, their use case is more around what you might consider like a typical chatbot, where you have a generative AI-powered dashboard that is ingesting their support tickets, generating vector embeddings from them. And let me see a minute, a little bit. I actually can't run. So what it does is it reads in raw Zendesk support tickets. And if any of you have ever read a support ticket, sometimes they can be almost hieroglyphic in how hard they are to parse, especially if you don't have a good system set up for like assigning different fields automatically. So what RAMP has is a system where every time a new Zendesk ticket is filed, a new a DAG is triggered to take that file, run it through their LLM, and then produce a human readable description. And you can kind of see this in a little paragraph in the top right corner of the picture. If you zoom in, I'm not sure it's possible, where it's just saying, it encompasses, hey, this is all the relevant information on the ticket in a way that just a regular support person working behind the scenes can understand. So that's two examples kind of real life customers. I also wanted to talk a little bit about Ask Astro, which is Astro's real example of putting ML into action, having it all managed with Airflow in an actual LLM using the Andreessen Horowitz's reference architecture. So before, actually, I'm going to share my screen now. And could I get a share screen check, please?
I'm here with you, George. I'll let you know. Oh, nailed
Awesome.
it on the first try. Way to go.
I hit it. I used to work in events. Don't worry, Jess. I'm a pro here.
Perfect.
So if should see me able to click around my screen here. If it doesn't, let me know. But here I can either, ask Astro, and what Ask Astro is, you can think of it like ChatGPT, but trained all on every single piece of Airflow documentation, our own internal customer use cases, support tickets, in the Airflow Slack to become the best person to ask about any of your Airflow questions. So one example is, I could say, hey, write me a DAG that performs an ETL process to transform Spark data and store it in a Snowflake database. And while this is processing and generating it, I can also show you, so you can, an advantage of this over ChatGPT is you can actually share questions. So if you're like, hey, I just asked this really good question, do you want to see the answer? And then someone can take that link, copy it, and then maybe continue it on and say, hey, actually, you need to adjust this DAG for this particular use case. And so if you've worked with tools like ChatGPT or Bard, kind of the downside when you're asking the right Airflow DAGs is they're trained on older information. This is trained on really up-to-date information, and also is a feedback loop. So as new information is generated, people ask questions, it is trained on all of that information as well. And so if I go into kind of the source code here under GitHub, the way this is all built, we go into, actually, I'm gonna go back to present. Okay, yeah. So back in the presentation, here I have some of the diagrams that's showing, what does the back end of this look like? So the initial training process was, pulling from different GitHub issues around Airflow, our own docs, the Airflow Foundation's documentations, and then Slack messages around from the Airflow Slack internally. We brought those all into LangChain, which is a tool that will just automate the process of breaking down all of your kind of raw, unstructured message data into more efficiently consumable embeddings. Then you have, or into chunks. Then you have OpenAI to generate chunk embeddings, right? And embeddings is just basically, you can think of it as condensed information, and then writing those into Weaviate, which is a database that is built specifically for embeddings to make it easier for ML models to consume that information. And so then what's happening behind the scenes, what happened just then when I was asking a question is I ask a question. There's also a Slack bot we have where it is sent into the backend. And this is everything I'm showing you here. This is all managed by Airflow under the hood. So really showing you kind of the versatility and how you can have the entire process orchestrated with one platform. So here, you have your original prompt split up into 3 different rewordings to get different potential matches, then using a Weaviate vector database to kind of find some responses, to look for any similar prompts that have been made, and then combining that in OpenAI and running that through the LLM to actually make a final response, and then serving that back to you, as well as saving the information. There's a tag to say whether or not you found it useful back into the backend so that it can start to get better and based on user reactions to their responses. And then similarly, you can just kind of see how this works on the back end, if you rate it good or not. And that is all I have for you today in terms of presentation. And I hope I have made a good case for why Astro is really the place where data engineers and ML engineers meet and should be the center of your ML ops stack.
I think you've made a great case for that, George, and we have some questions to get into. I'm going to very quickly put up this screen here. What we're looking for is what is the additional information that you would all like to get about the astronomer solution. So we just got a lot of great info from George. George, I have to say, Josh and I were chatting in the back end. We love when speakers kind of go off book and just like get creative with it, because it shows what you're excited to show us, right? What you're passionate about, yes. And that really comes through. So thank you for taking us on a journey with you today. And I know the audience really enjoyed it as well. There's lots more to dig into about Astro, right? And we're only brushing the surface in 20 some minutes here. So this Christmas shopping list on your screen is how you can make sure that you get that follow-up that you're looking for. What is it that would be helpful for you? More, more of that data sheet, more of that white paper, more of that demo, dig in a little bit more into a demo. This is how you make sure that you get the info you want. So click on that screen there. While you're doing that, George and I are going to dig into some of your questions. George, are you ready, my friend?
Yes, I am.
Pumped up and ready. Let's do it. Okay, well, I want to start with this one here because I do think this is an interesting one, and I'm just looking. Oh, actually, this one just came in. I'm going to start with this one here. Can the OpenAI wording in the orchestration include variations for multilingual responses?
Yeah, definitely. So I think it might already, because I know OpenAI is trained on non-English data, but there is also, just through my own experimentation, because AI, is good at translations. So you can use any model in any language you want. So there's actually no additional thing you need to do. I think we also support non-English variations as well. I unfortunately just don't know enough non-English to make a good example right now.
Yeah, you kind of have to speak the foreign language in order to ask the foreign language. So for those bilingual folks out there, give it a try. Well, and speaking of which, that actually brings us over to a question that we got about the free trial. And we have a member of our audience here, and actually this is a long-term audience member who we see quite a bit, who often works with schools and kind of helping schools understand, and test out different technologies, and students understand and test out different technologies. So always kind of interested in understanding what the free trial would look like. So could you give us a little bit more detail on what the audience could expect during the free 14-day trial of Astro?
Yeah, I would love to. And basically what you will get is the full, there's no holds barred version of Astro. It is I've even tested it on my phone. Makes it easy enough to spin up a fresh airflow environment in 2 to 3 minutes. There is, we have something called a Cloud IDE that allows you to write airflow DAGs without needing to know how to write an airflow DAG. And it'll turn it into DAG code that you can either upload directly or, copy and paste in your airflow environment. There's the Astro CLI, which is totally free. And that allows you to also spin up an airflow environment locally. But 14-day trial is really, we give you the keys to a fresh account, create as many airflow environments as you want, test it all out, blow off the wheels. And once you run through $300 of credits or 14 days, then the account will be locked and you'll get a lovely message from a sales rep. Yeah, that is kind of the process.
I like that. So you can kick the tires and blow the wheels off simultaneously. Amazing. That's a great next step. I'm wondering, I'm gonna get into some questions that are maybe a little bit more high level, but I'm curious about your answers, George. Could you give us a little bit of an idea of where you see data orchestration and whether that's important for building AI models and apps?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you look at any kind of reference architecture or anyone that's running AI applications, you need to manage so many different systems. Not only that, you need to manage a lot of different, feedback loops and, the actual prompts, right? So even asking a simple prompt, that's taking, that prompt is going through, as you saw in those diagrams, 5 different systems before it's being served back to you. And so you have to manage the API requests between those, transferring the data, making sure that, hey, I picked the right request. And so having a system that is able to work with all those in a, whatever way you want. So you're not cribbed into, hey, I have to conform to whatever the constraints of this platform specific GUI based schedule are. You have the ultimate configurability of code through a Python script. And so you're able to manage all of that and bring it all together in, the Airflow UI.
Well, this is great. And it's going to bring us around to what unfortunately will probably have to be our last question, because we are running a little short on time. But I'm wondering, because there's a lot of folks out there in our audience today that are decision makers and leaders in their company, and they're thinking about these strategic approaches. And there's a lot to consider, right? They've heard a lot just today, and I'm sure they're doing their own research. And sometimes I think we see a little bit of paralysis when there's so many opportunities and so many different things to consider. So I'm wondering if you could give a piece of advice to the audience out there, if there was anything that you would want these data leaders to be considering when they're thinking about adopting some of the more modern data technologies and practices into their organization. What's that one nugget of insight that you would love to pass on?
Yeah, I mean, I think the really important thing that everyone underlooks is data quality. You can't just throw a bunch of unstructured data you have sitting around directly into an AI model and expect it to work. Much of the processing is taking your raw data and bringing it into a format that is, not only easily understandable, but is clean enough, a high enough quality, so you don't have even a single entry with null fields could throw off your entire model. And so having that, and also going through many iterations to make sure, hey, is this data still of the highest quality even after if people start asking questions? Am I dealing with bad responses properly, right? And so that is really what I would emphasize the most, is just don't. I'd say 80. I think it's like 80% of the work is just data quality prep, and then then you have obviously the fancy AI and ML models at the end, but most of your time is going to be spent doing some ugly data cleaning and transformation before you get those nice sexy results.
Well, I love that. I think that is a really great takeaway and practical advice for everyone to apply. Thank you so much, George, for being here with us today. Before I was about to say goodbye to you, but before you actually leave us, other than the 14-day trial, what is the first step to getting started with Astronomer, with Astro?
Yeah, so let me actually, so I would say, obviously start the 14-day trial, but if you're just new to Airflow and you're looking for kind of a guide, check out the Astronomer Academy. We have, and I'll just put it in the chat, and I'm sure we can get it in one of our follow-up emails out there. And this is, we have some free basic courses and then some more advanced courses. Actually, no, all the courses are free. The only thing that you pay for is certification. So if you don't care about getting a fancy LinkedIn badge, check it out, go through the learning path, understand how to learn Airflow. We make it super simple. And, using Astro CLI really doesn't require any kind of fancy technical knowledge to get dangerous with Airflow.
Get dangerous with Airflow. Dig it. I just put that link out to everyone out in the audience, so you should see that in the questions chat area of the audience console. If you don't see that, flag our team. We'll send it to you directly, but that is an awesome next step. George, thank you so much for being here with us today. This has just been a ton of fun.
No worries. It was a ton of fun for me as well.
All right, and to everyone out there who's asking some great questions, keep those coming in, because we are going to make sure that they get to the Astronomer team. So you will get some answers back. I like just being able to talk about the Astronomer team because I feel like I'm talking to astronomers. I feel like Houston today. I just starting all my conversations with, how was that? Was that a pretty good radio voice? I'll work on it, guys. Okay. Well, there's a link for you in the questions tab. Make sure you click on that link. Also, make sure you head on over to the handouts tab. Make sure that you've got that handout, that data sheet from Astronomer. This is a great takeaway, just chock full of interesting insight about Astro. Again, that fully managed Airflow platform that is dramatically going to reduce cost while improving developer productivity and maintaining reliability. So important, all those best things. So make sure you've got that data sheet. Make sure you've got your questions in. Make sure you've got that link copied over to a tab. I just gave you so many things to do, and I will reward all of this good work of yours by giving you a prize giveaway. So we have our very last prize giveaway of the day, and it's another $300 Amazon gift card going to someone who is here live and present with us at the EcoCast, and that special someone is Michael Hughes of Maryland. Michael Hughes of Maryland, congratulations on your, Cheryl says great audio from Houston. Thanks, Cheryl, appreciate it. Over and out. I'll get better at this, guys. I gotta work on my voice acting classes. Next up, I'll do the little radio thing where I'll walk across the stage and open a door. Yeah, we got a ways to go, my friends. All right, so I'm gonna read all the winners here to you all. The 3 winners of our $300 Amazon gift card: Denise Holland of Maryland, Lonnie Cooper of Virginia, and Michael Hughes of Maryland. What a great winners list. Congratulations to you all. We will follow up with all of you about claiming your prize after we wrap up the webinar. Now, don't forget, there is that best question gift card coming at you from each one of the sessions. So even if you did not get your question read out live in one of our live discussions here, you are still entered to win just by asking that question. So thank you for asking those, and keep them coming in. You've still got another minute or two here to get those last questions in. All right, my friends, with that, we are going to start to wrap up our day here together. And I do want to remind you all that if you are sitting here on the EcoCast thinking that you have a solution that might benefit this wonderful community of humans, we would love to hear from you. So shoot us a message at connect@actualtechmedia.com and let's get that conversation rolling. We'll get you out on an EcoCast, a megacast, whatever you have in mind. And last but not least, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to once again thank our incredible speakers here with us today from ReliaQuest, Radiant Security, and Astronomer, really for making this EcoCast possible. On that note, a special thank you goes, as always, to all of you for attending, for asking those great questions, and just hanging out with us today. You know, there really are some very specific opportunities and also challenges when we start reaching for that bright, sparkly, shiny red HyperAutomation up-level button. And it's really exciting, but there is a lot to think about. As Bill said right at the start of our day together today, he said HyperAutomation is not just automation plus coffee, although I do really like that. And there's a lot of nuance to this conversation. There's a lot of moving pieces and ways that you could approach. So it is so important, as we talked about, to keep that curiosity, to keep asking those questions and keep digging in, to not assume that we understand things because they're changing all the time. And so we come together in these groups, we ask our questions together, we learn from each other's questions, and we learn from one another. So that is my favorite part of the EcoCast. That is my favorite part of the MegaCast, is getting to sit around and chat with all of you and learn from your experiences as well. So a big thank you to all of you for joining in that conversation. I hope that you had fun today as well as learned something new. And we do have another MegaCast coming up that you should mark your calendars for. That's tomorrow, Wednesday, November 15th, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Again, Wednesday, November 15th, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. We will be talking about state of IT security. What is important right now? So we are heading into 2024. I cannot believe how fast that's coming up, but here it comes for us. And so as we take a little look at the world around us right now, before we enter into this new year, what does the state of IT security look like? What is important for you to know as you go in thinking about the next year? All right, well, that is everything we have for you today. I hope that we will see you again tomorrow or at an EcoCast, MegaCast webinar, whatever you got in mind soon. And until we catch up again, I hope you have an absolutely beautiful end to your day.